fish lovers, looking at my cloudy tank. Did a water change literally a couple minutes ago, so it cleared it up. Tank been clear. It's been doing well with the gadget up in here. Not a lot of poop and stuff down at the bottom. Ran out of chemicals. Where I live at, we got very strong tap water, so we have to put chemicals in our fish water here. But I ran out of chemicals, so I wasn't able to do a water change in a while. So finally got it done today. We're getting some supplies. And I want to talk about these fish right here. Not specifically those 2 or 3, but this species of fish. And the reason why is I'm in this group on Facebook, and the conversation of what's good for corycats came up when it comes to substrate. This can be, what's the word? Very simple or very difficult for people to understand. And what I mean by that is, corycats come from multiple different bodies of water, usually being rivers, lakes, things like that, canals, and so on and so forth. Which means the bottom of the water is usually contained of rocks if it's coming from a river, lake, and so on and so forth, depending on the type of rock. It can be a nice smooth rock like what we're seeing right now in this tank, or more of a gravel type, but not necessarily this kind of gravel, or it can be more of a sharp surface along the bottom, or it can be sand or even mud. A lot of people who keep cories think, since cories have the bristle type noses that they use to detect food and shovel through the ground, that those can break and get injured when digging through rocks like this. It's actually false. There's no proven method, there's no scientist, or there's no big study of this. This is something that was made up by people who keep fish or maybe breed fish, and they just pass that down by generations. So now everyone thinks corycats need sand because it's much softer on their faces, and that's where they come from, so on and so forth. It's not necessarily true. It truly depends on the species of your corycats or where you got them from. What a lot of people don't understand is, when we do research on our fish, we're going through Google and things like that. And what Google is doing, and a lot of these websites, what they're doing is, they're looking up the natural habitat of where these fish come from, and they're giving you an estimate of pHs and so on and so forth, and their environments and what they're comfortable with. What people don't understand, 70% of what we're buying from fish stores is coming from a fish farm where they've been breeding these fish for generations, decades upon decades of breeding the same fish. So these fish never experience wildlife. So most of the corycats that you're buying are not wild caught. They're coming from a fish farm that's sold to a store, and then you're picking them up. They're going through different changes of pH levels and so on and so forth with inside of the tank. Bare bottom tanks or substrates of sand, soil, and different things like that. Fish adapt to their environment. So I have seen fish put in tanks that are unimaginable, disgusting. Do you think the fish should die, and they survive? And the reason why they survive is because, unlike humans, fish survive, animals should I say, endure and survive and adapt to their environment. A lot of humans cannot adapt to their environment. We'll be put in certain situations that can literally kill us, and animals can be put in situations where they can actually adapt to that surrounding and benefit from it. And people don't understand that when it comes to a fish. You can take a fish that's been inside of a gravel tank for 5-6 years and put him in a sand bottom tank. He's going to do that fine. He's going to do fine. It doesn't harm him in any way. It's the same thing with the corycats. they get used to what's at the bottom of the tank, and they do what they're able to do. Sure, they might like the sand bottom because it may be easier to scruffle through, and it keeps your sand nice and clean. Fish don't really know about that. They don't have that type of knowledge to say, okay, this is sand, and I like this, and it's easier for me to clean. They're not cleaning. That's not their job. They're looking for food. Humans, we kind of think for our animals, and we say, okay, this is a cleaning fish, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get this fish because it cleans my tank. That's not how fish would work. They're looking for food. So when they're at the bottom of the tank, it doesn't really matter how the bottom of the tank look. You can go bare bottom or not. You're gonna do just fine. Their noses are not going to break. It's the same thing. I heard the same thing with dojoloches. They prefer sand bottoms. Dojoloches come from parts of Russia and things like that, where a lot of it is rocky bottoms. So not necessarily it needs sand. Most of these fish come from very muddy, dark water that you cannot see in, and the bottom looks crazy. And I advise you to always do research on your fish and not to always listen to what people tell you. Even me. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. I've been successful at getting a beta in this tank, and betas in many of my other tanks with other fish. Fish that you wouldn't even imagine being compatible because of aggression issues. But I've been successful at doing it because I experiment. And what I'm talking about is I had a 35-gallon tank, and on the far left side, I did a substrate of dirt, and then in the middle I did a substrate of gravel and then sand. And I put Corycats, a few different kind of Corycats in there, and I see what side they stood mainly on. And believe it or not, they hanged out in the gravel area more than they did the sand and in the dirt. Yes, some were in the sand and some were in the dirt, but that's because that's what those fish probably enjoyed and liked, and maybe was easier for them to look for food and move it around. Fish are lazy animals, especially when we get them into fish tanks and they're trapped in this prison. They're depending solely on us feeding them. They're not really hunting for food. They're waiting for this lid to open and for us to put food in, and they rush to the top. They watch you. They watch your every move. So that's just something I wanted to put out there, because a lot of people were why can't I say this word? They were talking about why Corycats need a sand bottom, and that's just not facts. It's not facts. There's nothing out there that can prove that Corycats come from a sand bottom in the wild, or farms or aquarium shops are breeding them in sand. Most aquarium shops that you go into, especially your Petcos and your PetSmarts, you're going to run into a gravel bottom, whether it's fake, that plastic gravel, or actual gravel in the tank. So just be mindful of people may steer you in the wrong direction and tell you things that are not necessarily true. Always back up and do your own research. Thank you for watching. I know it's not a great video, anything like that. This tank is a little blurry, and this is what I'm concentrating on. Due to the water, and I'm finding out the more that I do water changes, what should I say? The less water changes I do, meaning I used to do 2 or 1 water change every week. I actually have skipped due to not having the medicine that I needed to chemicalize the water so it could be safe. I noticed when doing the water changes 3 weeks later and so on and so forth, that the clearability of the tank is actually getting better. So maybe I'm just doing too many water changes just to clear the tank up. Or I gotta do more better testing into the KHs and stuff like that. But thanks for watching. Big things will be coming for the channel, so stick by. I know I keep saying that, and y'all keep seeing the same tanks, but things are coming. The heater is getting ready to get put onto this tank here, so once this heats up to a good temperature, fish will be going in here. I already know what I want to put in here, so I'm gonna leave that as a surprise. And as for this tank here, I think we're going to sell our buddy here instead of moving him into another tank or into his original 55 gallon. And then our female up there, she'll be going into another 5-gallon tank that I have for the meantime, and then we'll be rescaping this lovely tank here. These plants will probably be coming out of here and going into that tank over there. Thank you. Please subscribe, leave a comment, like.